United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, this is a regularly scheduled meeting pursuant to the resolution adopted on January 11, 2023, with a meeting notice sent to the Hunterdon County Democrat on January 18, 2023. A copy of this agenda this meeting was posted to the Township website on November 17, 2023, posted to the bulletin board, and filed in the clerk's office on November 17, 2023. Mr. Al Nardi.
Here.
Miss Marnie Stetson.
Here.
Mayor Jenna Casper Bloom.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Dante DePiero.
Here.
Mr. Jamal Kadri.
Here.
Miss Natalie Nelson.
Here.
Miss Emily Deadweiler.
Here.
Mr. Richard Catanacci.
Here.
Mike Mills said he would not be present.
Okay.
Miss Attorney Alexis Smith. Here. Thank you.
Okay.
Mine is here too.
Oh, yeah, Megan. Hi, Megan.
I'm also here.
Stanley, thank you.
Last but not least. Okay. First things up is the review of tonight's agenda. Anybody have any changes, modifications to it? Looking good? Okay. All right. Let's open it up to the public for items not on the agenda. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
One of those.
All right. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Okay. Seeing none. Can I get a motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Presentation of meeting of the minutes. Kristen's been working hard, and we've knocked out quite a few.
Yay, I
Yeah.
want to
All right.
say yay, officially yay. Good job catching up.
So first up is June 8th, 2022, regular minute meetings, and the only ones I believe that can approve this are Natalie and Marnie. So seeing that, can,
Do we have to move, or do we just
Yeah.
vote to approve it?
You could vote. to
yeah,
approve it.
yeah.
That's fine.
Okay,
Thank God for survivors.
all right.
Yeah, right?
So the minutes of June 8th, 2022 are approved. On to July 13th, 2022. Just Marnie.
Yes, I got them. I have no corrections.
Okay.
You second that?
I second that.
All right.
Marnie's in favor? Okay. All right, so the minutes of July 13th, 2022 are approved. Going forward, September 14th, 2022, the regular minutes, Mike is not here, so it's back to Marnie and Natalie.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so the minutes for September 14th, 2022 are done. Going forward, October 16th, 2023, from our last meeting, any revisions before I make a motion to approve? None? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the regular minutes from October 16th, 2023?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The minutes for October 16th, 2023 are approved. Give me a second. All right. Going forward, we have resolutions for approval. Resolution. The first one is Resolution for Planning Board 2023-14, conforming a master plan consistency of the 20-09 Stormwater Ordinance, 2316 Stormwater Ordinance, and 20-17 Land Management Ordinance. These are ordinances are consistent with the master plan. Do we need a roll call on this one?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Roll call, please.
Well,
Go
point of
ahead.
order,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, if I may. As far as I understand, these this is a resolution to memorialize what we did last time, right?
That is
Because
correct.
the Township Committee, as I understand, we've already approved these, so I want to just clear on chronologically that this is to, memorialize, what we decided last time before it was sent to the Township Committee, before the Township Committee voted.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just the formality.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's
Committee
fine.
act fast,
I just
which is a
wanted,
great thing.
I just wanted to make sure. we-
Yep, as long as we're, consistent with the master plan, we're good on this one. Kristen?
Deputy Mayor Piro,
Yes.
Mayor Casper Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Cadre,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Deadweiler,
Yes.
Mr. Catanacci,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Stetson,
Yes.
Chairman Nardi.
Yes. Okay, that's approved. Going forward, resolution on Planning Board 2023-15 conforming to the master plan consistency of 2312. And again, these ordinances are consistent with the master plan that we've gone through over the last couple of months. Township committees already reviewed this. Again, another roll call.
Deputy Mayor DePiero,
Yes.
Mayor Jenna Casper Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Cadre,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Ms. Deadweiler,
Yes.
Mr. Catanacci,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Stetson,
Yes.
and Chairman Nardi.
Yes. Okay. Going forward, new business. This is a little premature, in my opinion. Of Ordinance 2B, 92-57 is the lighting ordinance. I know we went round and round for a couple of months with this one. Dante and Marnie and Natalie were on this subcommittee. They went round and round, made various modifications to it. I think Megan was involved. I know Alexis absolutely was. She made her recommendations. Everybody, I'm assuming, has viewed it. With that being said, since it's not an ordinance until the Township Committee brings it up in front of their board, I'm going to push this to you guys for
Well, no,
your
actually,
December
we have-
meeting.
I think,
We
Go
do
ahead.
have a decision to make. So through our discussions, we weren't clear on whether we wanted the no lights between 11 and 5 to be a shall or a should. And so there, in this draft that everyone has, there's 2 paragraphs. And I think you're right, it's obviously the Township Committee's call, but I think the planning board should probably send it with a recommendation on
Yeah,
that.
yes, we will.
So we need to decide that.
Whether,
Whether
Whether-
we think,
mandatory or recommendation that there
For the
will-
residential, right?
and I'll,
This is
Right,
the
for
dark sky.
residential, correct, for residential.
and I'll just say, I'm in support of making it should for residential, not for business, not, and my rationale is that, anything new that is gonna come before the planning board is gonna have to come with a lighting plan, that will give the planning board a chance to say why you need to, or why you should have timers or motion sensors. My reason to not make it shall for residential at this particular moment in time is because I think we need a little more time for the education piece. I think about older residents in the town who have a porch light that is not on a motion detector, and, you know, to say you must have your security light on a motion detector, I think is a little premature. That's just my,
Yeah, and people that work off hours, coming home late, or, with these time changes, I get home at 5:30, it's dark already.
Marnie, may I ask you a question? Can we put it such that new construction shall, but existing construction is grandfathered?
I mean, you can,
I mean, I'm just,
lawyer, that's a question for
because
a
I
lawyer.
think your point is well taken. If you're building from scratch,
anyone that comes with has to come to the planning board with a construction plan, there will be an opportunity to talk about the lighting, and we
Okay.
at that point could require that.
okay.
So my comment is I agree that we want to educate folks and because we want to encourage folks to see why it's important and then choose to follow, because that's always better than mandating or having us use a heavy hand. There are other options in terms of how we do it too. I mean, if you think that transition period's important, I mean, it could be that it's mandatory, but for 6 months or a year or something, there could be an opportunity for folks to be educated. And so you don't have to then, do something permissive and then you have a big problem and you can't enforce it. But you could give people passes. The other thing is, with any of these ordinances, discretion is important. And when an enforcement officer's out there, we want them to use their discretion and not be overly difficult, but to make sure the purpose is getting accomplished and people do have a chance to transition. So, I think there are a couple of different ways we can not be heavy-handed about it while we try to educate folks about the importance.
So maybe we can just send it as it is, and then you guys can figure
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah.
We probably should take some, comment here, I think as you were suggesting, but obviously with the ordinance, it'll have that whole process, you're right, Marty, so, whatever folks say,
It's true.
right, so, it's a little balancing for government, right, to try to do the right thing and not be mandating everything to everyone, because that's not.
Yeah, yeah.
So, somehow, Township Committee has to find the balance, I think.
Right. I'd like to just send this as is to the Township Committee for their next, December meeting.
Next step.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess, do we want to open for public?
Well, so before you do the as-is, I think the way Marnie had set it up, there's still or maybe that you were already contemplating that you were saying there are two options. Is that what you were thinking?
It's currently, that's the form that it's in.
No, if I
Right.
was going
Oh, I
to send it as is, where it was the chair's thought, well, we'll do that and therefore it's gonna be a discussion anyway, or,
I'm going to send it as is, and I think the Township Committee could review it and possibly make any changes.
And
But
there'll be a
I-
public hearing, correct?
yeah.
Yes,
maybe-
yes,
and the
absolutely.
public will get a
Yeah.
So
chance.
there's a chance
yeah.
for the public, not
Right.
that you really then want to redo the whole ordinance, but
Right.
Right.
It's an important discussion, so,
It is. We've kind of beat this up for a few months, but I think we should just pass it off.
yeah, I'm
And
fine with.
go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from the board before I open to the public on this one? Okay, could I get a motion to open to the public regarding this dark sky lighting ordinance? Second? All in favor?
I-
Anyone from the public? Come on down, Candy.
Candy Wiggum, 1116 Old York Road. Does this apply for the village as well as for out of the village? I take my dog out at night, I walk him, I bring him in, sometimes I will forget to turn off the porch light, but I also have a big street light right in front of my
Mhm.
house, and my porch light seems kind of minor compared to
Yes.
the big lights, so, but how extensive is this for the whole township? Are we gonna do nothing about street lights then and leave those on, but not have house lights on?
Yeah, we haven't even approached the streetlights, but this is just for all of East Amwell. But as far as like your porch light, I don't think that anybody's gonna have issues with a porch light unless you have, a 200-watt bulb in there and you're aiming it at your
Well,
neighbor.
the other thing too is, those both face downward, right?
Right.
Which is most of the intent of this, right? So it's not, sending unnecessary light upwards. So in your case, I think the street light's probably not an issue because it's down and probably required by the DOT or whatever. And for you, if you're turning off your lights, I'm sure at 11 o'clock anyway when you go to bed, so I don't think it has an impact on you. But I think if you look at it carefully, maybe you can see if there's a place where we need to have more attention.
Yeah, it just seems like there's always gonna be light on in the village.
Mhm.
Yep, and you should realize too, if you haven't looked at the text, commercial's different too, so the commerce that's there, they're gonna have lights already, so it's a different sort of nature, that's true.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Come on up, Linda.
Linda Raft, East Amwell residents. I may be losing my mind, it does happen, but I remembered last time we had quite a big discussion on this, and we were never, the public was never given a copy of it. We were told that we would not see it until you had gone through your discussion, and then it would be available to us. And the implied, or I took it to mean we were going to see it this month. I went through the packet today at about 3 o'clock and looked at everything that was in there, and the only thing that was in there is the agenda. So you're taking this and passing it on
One second.
to the township, and I, as a member of the community who's been here at these meetings, have never seen it.
1 second. Let's see if I have something in here. Want to take a peek?
No, I prefer to have a
Yeah,
copy.
sorry. I didn't burn copies for everybody.
I mean, I think I have, well, you gave us copies, or I think I
Yeah.
have one.
I'm just saying, normally it would be included in the packet.
I
that
thought,
we-
I thought it was in the back.
It was, it's
Yeah.
not in the packet.
Can I,
Yes, go ahead, Alexis.
so, this isn't technically for master plan consistency, right? We're still in the deliberation.
I'm talking
Before it's
about the
even-
lighting
No,
ordinance.
no, I know, oh, yeah.
It's
So,
not-
it's still almost in its infancy.
It's not an
before
ordinance
it's
yet.
the committee hasn't even introduced it yet, so that's why it might be a little different than what you're used to.
I
They've
thought
just-
you said you were gonna send it to the township
We
for
are,
next month.
for
So-
December's meeting.
Well,
But we've never seen it from the
They're
planning.
not gonna vote on it in December.
Right.
And it'll come back, it'll come back, so once it goes to township, once the township committee introduces it and whatever changes they choose to make, then it'll come back just like like we've been doing with the other, master plan consistency ordinance, it'll come back for discussion.
But when it goes to the township, it won't be printed off for us on that first meeting.
Yes.
That'll
Yes,
just
Yes,
be
yes,
out.
yes.
Now you're going to print it off? Because you
Well,
haven't printed it off before. It has always been the second meeting that we could have a public talk about it. The first introduction has always been,
No.
just read it by title.
no, I'm sure that it's in the packet, so when we announce it, if, you know, for introduction, there are copies in the packet, so people can look at it, even though the township takes no action. And then there's the hearing at the subsequent one after you've looked at it. But in any event, I'm happy to give you this, so you can have it, but.
Whatever.
I
Here,
mean,
I have 2 copies.
That's where the hearing will happen, and
I'm just
Anybody else want a copy?
Does anybody else? Yes. You know, it's just that I have been sitting here very faithfully, and okay, so I'm just saying that probably we need to be more explicit the next time that this comes through, to say, no, you're not going to see it, you know, that type
Right,
of
well, it
thing.
wasn't done purposely. you know,
No, I
yeah.
realize that, it's just, you know, it's so long a time between it's a month.
Yes.
And don't worry, I might not be around the next time, so you won't have a problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Francis?
Francis Gavin, East Amlo. Too old for this to have happened to me. I was informed by a boarder of mine that an unforeseen gremlin got the attention of a horse and she got dumped in the dark in my rain. And I have motion sensor lights on my barn, which are not the most responsive in the planet. They might have a little window there, they might have an attitude there. I think a little more flexibility for farm buildings or homes or things like that than you've considered, and it'll come up at the time. And maybe Linda and others can, you know, comment, you know, before the public hearing. You know, I have a porch light on, I leave it so I can see what's out there when the coyotes come to call, and things to that effect. But I just, anytime you have all shalls or musts or this, that, and the other, you paint somebody, and if you're going to be doing an enforcement, I somehow or other do not see the township enforcement officer going to be out there at 7, 8, 10, 11 at night, which means you're putting teeth in an ordinance that will have only gums. So, something in that, especially for new versus existing construction, or if it's agricultural, you know, you can't impose this on the lights behind the school, but they'll certainly be off property. So how are you gonna handle that kind of thing? Because they can say no, you know, whatever. Just be careful. I'm sure you will. And, you know, it's getting to be a little bit fragile for the older folks. And when a 40-year-old's talking about getting dumped, all it does is make my insurance premiums shiver in fear and things like that, because horses don't read. They do interpret it. Just, be considerate of the law of unintended consequences. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you, Francis.
Before you move
Yes,
on,
sir.
so I think two things that I recall is, one is if you've got security lights on a motion detector that turns on and off, as I recall, the language says that that's perfectly fine. So
Always, yeah.
I don't think anyone needs to worry about that. And the other thing about, having something that is only should, I mean, I think everyone on the planning board, and Francis, since you were there too, I remember at this application, when the cell phone tower folks came in, some neighbors said they had a problem because the lights from that were always shining onto their property. So if we have a should thing, we want to be able to make sure that our folks are going to do it if push comes to shove. So we hope to educate, but it is a balance, Francis, and you remember that.
Yeah,
And so
I realize that, and I'm sure you'll distinguish between commercial operations
it does,
or
yeah.
expanding things or things that are 300 feet up in the air
Yep.
versus a little dingy motion detector or a light that's on a porch.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
I think a good rule of thumb is for anybody around their house, if we're about security or anything, put something on a motion detector, it's great. And that ordinance, as suggested, has no problem with that. So, because we do want to make sure people are protective of security, and I think that's a good way to balance the two issues. But we'll have that discussion, and people should chime in. So, thanks for your comment.
Anyone else from the public? Okay. Nope. All right. Well, seeing none, can I get a motion to close to the public on this?
So moved.
Second?
So moved.
All in favor? All right. Let's see. Unfinished business, subcommittee reports. Well, I think we pretty much knocked out everything that the subcommittees were working on, so we should review what's left of the recommendations.
Before
Go ahead.
I do that, I just want to, I've recently run into some confusion about this process, like what we're doing with these changes. And there's only a couple of us that have been here since the very beginning. So I just wanted to get it on the record what this process is and what we're doing. And Natalie, please chime in or correct me if anything's wrong. Like, as we've said before, this is the result of the re-exam, which is required every 10 years. We were re-examining the 2013 master plan re-exam to see what's changed, what problems have gone away, what problems have become worse. And that report was written in 2021 and 2022 with the then professionals, they're not here anymore, and the prior planning board, of which Natalie and I are the only ones left. And
Mike.
Yeah, Mike.
Mike, but he's
He's
not
not
here.
here.
No, yeah, Mike. Then in 2023, so the plan was largely done in December of 2022. In 2023, we had a lot of new people, and we hadn't had the hearings yet. So we had to get everyone up to speed, we had to have the hearings. And then in June of this year, that master plan re-exam was passed unanimously with great support from this current board with a couple minor changes. And I think that that's really great news because it's in large part a reflection of the fact that our town, I believe, has a really clear idea of what it wants. It wants to be a farming community, a rural community that supports farming. And I think that was the case with the prior board, it's the case with this board, and it's not a coincidence, it's because the town is unified, which I think is really good. So the list of priorities that we are working on now, the warehouse, the parking, this long list, grew out of that master plan re-exam. Those things that we're changing have been in the code for many years. The prior board wanted to change them, this board wanted to change them. It's complicated because when you start to untangle it, you run into other parts, so it takes time. And it's, to me, super exciting that we're now doing it, but it is not a change in course. It is consistent with what the prior board wanted to do. And I just feel like in this world full of divisions that we do not need to manufacture divisions. And I just wanted it to be clear that what we're doing is not a deviation from what has gone before. And then the last thing I just wanted to say is that this is a board and that no one individual can make a decision for everyone else. And since I've been here, which is, I think about 4 years, pretty much everything we've done, we've worked really hard to build consensus about. And I think that is also a reflection of the unity that our town has about what it wants to be. And I just hope that we can continue that way. So, Natalie, anything to add?
I think that's well said.
Vice Chair, can I add something? So the way that the planning board's going about this is really like, almost like the idealistic way to do it. Because oftentimes with these master plan reexamination reports, not much happens, in my experience. So it's really great and refreshing from being around this, seeing that there's so much excitement and action actually being done about these action items that are really just kind of boiled down from what's there, just an easy way for everyone to reference. So a lot of times nothing is actually done with these. It's ultimately recommendations, but the board and the committee is clearly taking it very seriously, and it's really what the statute is intended to do every 10 years, and that's why it's required. So it's great that something that doesn't always happen in a lot of municipalities is happening here. So.
I appreciate you saying,
Thank
because
you.
I agree. I think the chairman and the whole board has been taking that approach to try to make our ordinances the best that they could be. And I've appreciated how this board in particular has, closed some of the loopholes for potential development and tried to, in a number of ways, tried to make it better. So I thank you for the thoughts, and I commend everyone on the planning board for this process. I think we're making our ordinances better, and I hope our residents will be able to get the benefits.
Absolutely. I don't want to drone on about this, but I view this board as like a team, and we've been working extremely well together, and I'm very thankful for that. Plus the feedback from our residents and people that come to and speak up during our meetings. All right, good. Thank you, Marnie. Thank you, everyone. All right, where was I? Okay. So we should review the remaining items on the master plan. I know it's November next month. I don't think we're going to be able to provide any feedback from subcommittees based on what I've seen coming down the pipe that's going to hit the planning board. But
Mr. Chairman?
yes, ma'am.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
So, after last meeting, I took the list and I went home and I started trying to, as I want to do, organize them and say, these 10 things kind of go together, and maybe I tried to sort of parcel it out. I didn't get as far as I would like, but I think right now the list sometimes seems unwieldy, and for someone like myself as a layperson, I look at it and I'm like, can you put these two together? Where does this belong? So I'm hoping by next month I'll have something that I can share. I've asked for help because I'm not an expert.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it felt to me a little for lack of a better word, like they were all listed, and I don't want to say negative, but they weren't naturally grouped in my mind.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
So I have signed up for it. I was hoping to be further along, but
It's okay.
I'm hoping by next month we'll have something, and then we, obviously we'll go into next year, but at least we will maybe have something that's a little ready for the next round of actions.
Absolutely. We've got to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Yep. Thank you, Emily. All right. So my opinion, and it's just my opinion, and we have a whole board here, but I'd really like to start looking at removing some of the regulations from the definition section of the land use code. That's one.
Yes.
I think that's a big one, but I'm open to the board. You guys, I'm just the chairperson. Speak up. Let's talk about this before we open to the public. Thoughts?
On that one in particular, Al,
Yes, sir.
I signed up to work on that too. I agree. I think that's very important. I think we should continue to proceed with that one. I know there are other ones as well, but
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Alexis? You're our attorney. Anything that you think has a higher priority, has a high priority list for us?
I think now that the board is off of the comments I just made, you've taken it so seriously. A lot of the smaller items are and have been taken care of. So now we look at some of those bigger items,
They're big,
right?
yeah.
That are like almost a little scary
Mhm.
and intimidating to look at. And I think it's important to remember that while we're moving along so quickly, these can be done over time too,
Yeah.
right? So things like the circulation plan, right? Scary thing,
Yeah,
right? Or the historic preservation plan element, scary, they're big, expensive things that take a lot of time, effort, and resources. So it's important to remember that
Yep.
in those type of action items, that everything doesn't have to be done right now. But those things will be important along the line. But I think the board has done a great job of doing the smaller ancillary things and the township committee as well, passing ordinances and introducing them, moving things along. But the one that you mentioned, Chairman, and I know Committeeman mentioned that he'd work on removing those definitions.
Mhm.
We're kind of in the process of doing those type of things, right?
Yes.
Clean up things, so that might be useful to do while everyone's in that mindset.
I know with the tree replacement and tree clearing ordinance, that's part of that's a condition with the stormwater too, and right now, I think it's DEP, can't make up their mind what they want it to say. So, we might want to touch on those after we get that back from the state and make sure we're in line with that.
Okay.
And I believe too, Mayor, that there's been an extension for those ordinances, I believe until May, middle of next year, I believe, right?
We just knocked them all out at our
Yeah,
township meeting, so it'd be nice to know we had till May,
Township
but
committee, but I believe there was a bit of an extension, so even if.
would make
once
sense.
it does give a little bit of a buffer for, to get those things passed, but.
I'm sorry, Alan, Alexis, I mean, one thing that I see is like number 10, the grandfather lot provision in the ordinance. I wasn't sure what that was, but it seemed to me that grandfathering of lots is always an issue that lurks. Perhaps that's one that we could find out what the issue is first and then see where that rate's based on that. That might be one thing to put in the perhaps up next category.
Okay.
and this is where I started looking, well, if you're doing that one, should you be doing like the subdivision ordinance, and should you be doing, like, there's a few that's literally how I went down that sticky,
Yeah.
like, can we group a few of these and deal with them at one time?
I'm wondering,
And that's,
I'm wondering
I'm not saying
though-
not to do, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm not saying not to do that, but I just wanted you to know that that's where I kind of went down this path.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think the thought is right to try to do them together if we can, but if it seems too big, I would just, pick a couple and just start on it.
Agree.
But I agree with your thought that, because sometimes the thought process of all those goes together. Subdividing, ability to do development because it's grandfathered, those are related to that.
And like, there's the corner lot thing, and there's that, like, a few of those things just
Yeah, I
are
don't know what
really
that is.
naturally connected. I could be wrong.
I think one thing that sort of as an initial matter, you have to decide is whether we're gonna do the master plan amendment for the Sauerland district and the Valley district.
Yeah, that's a big,
Because a lot of those things that you're mentioning would naturally fall under, like corner lot would be in that, so, and those are, as Alexa said, those are sort of bigger ticket items.
But
so.
those things apply even outside of those districts, so to me, if you started with those, and we learned what they are, we'd see about the relevance. In terms of, I agree with you that, Sarah Mountain is so important, so is the Valley, that those do require attention. I don't know, I think the same way, maybe we can figure out, even if we set up a subcommittee to look at it, to see what the initial threshold issues are. Like, when's the last time we did a natural resource inventory for the Sarahlands? And do we need that, or is it still pretty much the same? Is it, materially different because of the emerald ash borer? Is it different because so many ash
deer.
died?
I think
so-
I could be wrong, but I think the answer is never.
Yeah, so,
So,
well, no, a natural resource inventory was done, I believe, when there was the change in zoning to go to the down zoning. So, because I
So when
think
was that? In 2009?
somewhere in the early 2000s, yeah. So, but what, my point is, I think a lot of these probably benefit from some preliminary research before we can just say what's the next thing to do. Maybe there's some data that's relevant enough that we can use it, and so maybe it's not quite as big a project, or maybe as Marnie's suggesting, which could be right, we do have to do an entire big process, and then that's a different sort of budgeting and for time and money issue.
Mhm.
But, because both those things are very relevant, I mean, for overall planning, so. I'm not sure without that preliminary work, how we figure out what the ones are tackling next, but.
That's a good point, Dante. Yeah, maybe we can get like subcommittees going for, just to
Yeah,
do the initial research on the Sourland Mountain districts.
right.
And
And then
go from
report
there.
back, and then we can
Yeah,
chat again and
yeah.
see.
I think that's a good idea. All right.
May I ask a question that I should know the answer to, but I'm gonna ask it in public? Master plan amendment versus a land use plan? Like wasn't there a land use plan adopted for,
Certain, so that only certain, if I believe, I'm correct, only certain districts, it was adopted, I believe, in 2022.
for Ringgo's, if I
Yeah.
recall?
Yeah,
it was
Yeah.
village.
It's pretty much the
So are they
village
two
and-
different things, or are we calling them, are they the same thing with different names? I guess that's my question. Are we doing a master, like,
They're different things.
thank you. I know I should know this, but I don't.
No, no, it's fine.
I mean, so
Ask.
there's-
You should know.
Yeah,
I
don't
mean,
ever
the way I
apologize.
understand is there's a master plan, but there are different elements to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are different land
There's
use
somewhere.
elements, and so, for example, one was for the village. Could be another for the valley, could be another
Mhm.
for Saraland
Yeah.
district, and so.
That I get, but what would we do, a master plan amendment and then a land use plan, based on what you find in the master plan? Is that how it works?
A land use plan,
A land, I swear I saw somebody, what was that was adopted?
Here, come on. Pass
It's
this
called
to you.
land use, correct?
Yeah.
That's
I mean-
what I'm,
Land use element.
But-
The element.
yeah.
The
yeah.
element.
element, I'm sorry.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
no, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
so I
that's
think-
what I'm trying to
I think
just.
those are the ordinances, I mean, if I'm understanding what you're saying, I mean, there's a land use element as part of our set of ordinances, and those ordinances implement things, and a lot of those general planning principles can come from the master plan, so if that's what you're thinking, and, you know, it's kind of the planning board thinks about what happens in various districts and what important issues are, those flow into township committee's work on specific ordinances, and some of them are like the land use ordinances in that section.
This is the element. So
Yeah,
there's,
Megan?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Thank
no,
you.
I'll say too, like, in a lot of municipalities, the land use element is, so it's like the comprehensive master plan, and a land use element is a required part of the master plan.
okay,
And in a lot of cases, towns will just do one land use element, because, I mean, it just, the town just kind of, all works together, that kind of thing.
contiguous, like.
Yeah,
something more.
exactly. But in towns like this, where you have very specific areas, you might, like, this is when we look to separate them out a little
Yeah,
bit, and that's when we focus on those different, those recommendations specific to those areas.
So this is a land use plan element, and it's not ordinances. It's,
No, it's not the
No,
ordinances,
no.
no.
so you would, so going back, you would do a master plan amendment and then a land use plan, or are they one and the same? This is, they're two,
Let me see where it's written.
and by the way, you know what, we can take this off, I don't need to slow this all down if it's not like black and white easy.
Legally, I don't know the
I
correct
know less
answer to
about
that.
asking.
I-
I'm just trying to see how it, give me a second to see how the recommendation was.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Yeah.
like what Megan was saying, there are different elements to a master plan,
Got
right?
it,
So
yeah.
just like we mentioned, the circulation, the historic preservation, right? Different
Ah,
parts.
so this is one element.
That's
Okay,
one
got it.
element,
Yes.
and then it's subdivided, right?
Got it.
Into, so those, the way East Amwell did it is that Ringo's and those centrally located that are more similar, right? Were that land use
Okay.
element, right?
It's fingers
Now
and
there's-
commercial.
Now there's
Yeah.
now there's the other that are different than that, but more similar to each other,
Yeah.
that were not part of that need to be done.
Yeah,
If that
so
makes
we'll be
sense.
doing a land use plan element.
Yes, for
No,
those,
that's
which is a heavy,
Yeah,
heavy.
that's-
It
I'm
is,
just trying
and
to
yeah, Emily,
understand.
looking at the recommendation, I'm not sure why it's written the way it is here. It is just to do a land use plan element for the Amwell Valley District, not a master plan amendment.
This
So
is
it
what
is
I was
also gonna
confused
be just
about.
the land
Yes.
use
I was like,
element.
where, is there another layer here that
Yeah.
we have, yeah, I actually did Google it and didn't get the answer. Thank you.
Anybody else from the board before I open this to the public? All right. Can I get a motion to open to the public regarding this subject?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Public?
I'll just have a clarification.
Can you just come up, Candy, if you don't mind? Let's make it official.
Just out of clarification, what are you opening up to the public?
We're opening up to the
To
public
make suggestions
for,
about what should be next?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Priorities of how to
Priority
follow
list of the
up.
master plan re-exam.
Okay, that's,
Yeah,
I just wanted to
Yep.
get that clear.
Yep. Francis?
Stagger to the front. Again, sorry. Francis Gavigan, East Amwell. A few of you are horse people and may have received the email that I and others got from the AVPA over the weekend saying that as of immediately, all land and trails that have been used for the last 40 years on Thompson land, access is gone. So basically, there are no more riding trails between now, from where I am, and Lindbergh Road and things like that. And there's a map, and I can forward it to you, that shows you all the little places where Thompson Land, the lawyers wanting to do it, as opposed to Bryce, who is very horse friendly, have decided that you can't do anything, you can't ride through the woods, you can't ride along the edge of it or anything like that. So what has been an artery, basically, to support the agricultural activities of the Amwell Valley and the riding public and all of that is becoming very constricted. Now, you can't go to one person and the other and say, you have to do this, but in land use and a land element, you can, and it was brought up years ago, I think, by gardeners and some other folks about putting into the master plan encouragements to have riding easements or trails accessible along property lines. If nothing else, you could get from one point to the other. That's an element that is encouraged by the county because one of their goals is to have trails connect so that you can do it. At one point in time, the Emerald Valley Trail Network was like 75 miles. Now it isn't, unfortunately.
7.5.
Yeah, it's kind of getting to that. You know, pine twigs accessible, but pine twigs for sale, and it could be like what's happened up off of Mountain Road and some of the other places where we get people from out of state who move in here and they basically build their walls and things, and there's nowhere for the animals or horses or agricultural activities to get by or to enjoy what we've spent so much money to protect. So if you considered adding as an element to your land plan as to encourage and possibly in a major development or something like that, to require some form of a right-of-way, especially if it's horses or hikers or something or other, there are laws on the books. The AVPA has insurance. Anybody who's got anything that can be taken away from them has insurance and pays for it. You know, there's an inherent understanding that riding a horse is a dangerous sport, so if you fall down and go splat, you're splat on your own terms. But this can be a way that if you're doing a development or somebody's doing, say, a big greenhouse kind of thing, and they want accommodation from the planning board and from the township, that as a quid pro quo-ish can be to incorporate, just as you would a lighting plan, or to have some kind of a trail access, because there's no place to go. And we're not supposed to light our rings any more than necessary. And this, you know, Marnie, did you get that email?
Yeah, you didn't talk to anyone on the Trail Association, did you?
No,
I'm
I
just
haven't.
curious.
I
But
talked to the Animal Valley, the Hounds folks. They said the issue is like indemnity. It's like the attorneys are demanding some kind of special liability insurance that.
well, the people that bought the airport, they were a nonprofit and they didn't want, they wanted to have, they didn't want anything that had to do with hunting, and that's how they were treating the Animal Valley Hounds. The Trail Association gets insurance, and so as part of your membership dues, it goes to that. So whatever the specific nature is of whatever that attorney that took over once Bryce died, he may be wanting it that some blanket that you'd have to get Lloyd's of London rather than something, and if there's no carrot to go with the stick, he has no incentive to play nice in the sandbox that is the Amwell Valley. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of places, especially with all the trees that are dying and dead. So when you're doing your tree cutting ordinance, you know, a lot of places, including parks, are spooked about right now is people getting killed by ash trees falling on their head or branches and things like that, you know, and all that. But do something for the Trail Association. And Jamal, maybe I can talk to you at some other point about what you heard from whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Francis. Anyone else? No? Okay, seeing no one else.
I don't know if it.
Meanwhile,
Hi.
hello.
I have a question. I don't know if it falls under this open to the public or the next open to the public, so boot me out when necessary. I was just wondering if, I know, they're gonna talk about development, and the design, mainly in the preservation, the historic district in Ringo, so I was just wondering if anything has come up about that.
Nothing, as of yet.
It's number 2 on the list,
So-
though.
Yeah,
So-
it's
so
on the
yeah,
list,
there-
but
I mean, there's been some conversation about it, about, you know, the historic committee and what's next. And it is, if you look at the priorities, it was prioritized. I still don't think we've gotten to the point of actually creating standards or processes, you know, I don't think the preservation committee has gotten there yet, but it
Okay.
hasn't been dropped.
right,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. And one other thing, again, great job. I'm not complaining about the warehouse issue at all. Just one concern that I did have a couple of meetings ago, it was recommended not to be too specific with what could be with flex this and
Yeah.
flex
Mhm.
that and whatever. But my concern with not being specific is opening up a can of worms for people to come in and sue you because it wasn't too specific. So I have been like, I've been thinking a lot about that and just my concern as to, I get you don't wanna be specific, but that's how doors are opened. So they could like kind of
I'll let Alexis answer
crawl through
this
the
one.
back door and do what they gotta do. So that
So,
is just a concern.
looking at, I've reviewed, and I believe most of the planning board has reviewed, the chapter 92, which is the development ordinance in East Denwell. Warehouses, or really any type of similar use of distribution centers, any really type of like industrial use, are not permitted uses, right? Meaning not in East Denwell. Meaning that, meaning that it can't be developed here, because there's a section in the ordinance and the general understanding of land use law that when something is not expressly permitted, it's prohibited, right? So since it's not permitted anywhere in any zone in East Denwell, it's not permitted, right? So something like a warehouse, distribution center, right, parcel hub, industrial type use. There's no similar use, right, based on what we've looked at, that would permit what you're thinking of. Now, that idea is constantly changing, right, we have the flex spaces, things like that, but based on our understanding right now, there isn't a use that really permits what we think of what a warehouse is here currently in East Denver.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to close to the public on this?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's my agenda. Okay. Review of the ordinance 9298 and 9299, the master plan consistency. So again, we've been going round and round with this one, and we struck the word warehouse out from it. So I leaned on our subcommittee, Megan, Alexis. So here's their recommendations in a nutshell. Assembly operations, we can strike that. Finishing operations, we can strike that. The pool, we can also remove that. The whole list for those ordinances, I don't know if everybody has a copy, but they're definitely online under our ordinances, but it's like peeling an onion. We can knock out these, but we have to start slowly peeling the onion to make sure that everything in there is taken out from other ordinances, if indeed we want to strike those from the ordinances. Manufacturing, that's a discussion. Number of spots required for home occupation seems excessive, but this isn't going to be a long process. This is going to be like, within a month. This could be 6 months, 8 months, who knows? But there's a lot of items on there that we actually need to really do our due diligence before we move forward. Megan, Alexis, chime in on this one as well. There's a lot. Right.
Yeah, because when I started looking at it, there were thoughts coming in like, okay, we don't have manufacturing defined anywhere, and I think it's just some of those definitions. Because the other thing too with manufacturing, a lot of times that could deal with agricultural type processing, and that's something that we want to support in this area with all the farmers in this area. So I think it's then something where we look at possibly doing a specific definition for maybe light, like call it light manufacturing, that type of thing. Where it's all stuff that's done indoors, it doesn't allow for fumes, prohibits that type of stuff, like evasive type stuff. So that's my take on it.
Thank you.
And similar to what Megan said, a lot of things interconnect, right? So like Megan said, there is no definition, say, for manufacturing, and there's also, same thing, there are definitions that we have that there is no, it's not permitted, or they were explicitly prohibited in any zone, right? So there's a lot of almost useless information there.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like what the board already worked with of removing warehouses, right? You look at that alone, right? Just a brief review is most of those uses don't have any permitted use to actually attach to, or even one that is arguably similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the examples I saw was car wash.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of that, but when there's a lot of that, it also takes a lot of time, and like the chairman said, you have to make sure that you're going and checking almost all the boxes to make sure that everything is cohesive, and you don't leave out, like, for example, that warehouse in the bulk parking standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a process, for sure. It's something that will definitely help clarity.
Alexis, do you have a recommendation on the best way to go about that?
I think it's just
Because it's very detail oriented.
Yes.
elbow
Yes.
piece. I honestly
Yes.
think it's just looking at it and being patient and going through, like, for example, that was a great place to start, with just, because there's a chart, right? You can look at that chart and say, okay, I go and look at that definition, and that's what I did for a few of them. Go and look, see if there's that definition. Is that a permitted use in any zone? That's as easy as word searching. But then, when it comes to word searching, right? I think, for example, the car wash, there's automobile wash, so that wouldn't come up, right? So, but that's why, like, it takes a lot of patience and just time to make sure it's done correctly.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, there's nothing easy way. Word search does help. It's not perfect, it's like everything.
Any comments from the board before I open to the public on this one?
Is that something that you wanna have a ordinance review subcommittee?
We may consider that, yeah. I mean, I'll have to talk to Township Committee, after this meeting, but, you know, like I was
Wait,
saying.
why? Why do you have to talk to Township?
Well, because, hold on 1 second, let me get my notes. Like, again, do we
No,
wanna
I
do
mean,
this?
For us to look at the ordinance, not to change it.
No, yeah, we're not gonna change it, but like, the low-hanging fruit, like assembly, you know, operations, we can, you know, take care of that, finishing operations in the pool, but do we wanna just do this, oh, let's knock out, you know, these three, and then drag it out and look at everything, or do we wanna do it in one fell swoop? So 6, 8 months from now, you know, we can go through this and like, here's a here's a definition for this, it's in this ordinance, and let's make this a lot cleaner than it currently is.
Right, but we can decide that. We don't need to
Yes,
ask the.
yes,
Township.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but
But-
I don't wanna, and I'm debating, and let's debate right now, right? Should we just look at striking out assembly operations, finishing operations in the pool? And I can create the memo, and if we're all in agreement, and pass it to,
I
So
was
you're saying
suggesting
parsing
Doing
it
it
out,
incrementally.
sending, and then having a township
Yeah.
committee has to look at it.
Yes,
Has to
they
come back for
absolutely do.
master plan
Yes.
review. So maybe get some input, would they like us, the township like us to do it in 2 batches, or 3 batches?
I was suggesting something different.
Go
I was
ahead, go ahead, Maureen.
suggesting someone
maybe we misunderstood you.
look, you know, a group of the planning board start looking at the ordinance, exactly doing the kind of work that Alexis is talking about, sort of identifying, like we did with warehouses, which maybe was deceptively easy because
Yes.
it's so big and clear and heinous.
Mhm.
But having a subcommittee of the planning board sort of prioritize.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely do that as well. There's, you know, like I said, it's an onion that we have to peel, and there's many layers to this one, so, I mean, might take a long while. That's why I'm, you know, in my head, I'm debating, let's knock out, you know, these, and then go down, you know, the road that you suggested. It's an idea as well. I mean, I'm just the chairperson. I'm not, you know, open for
And then, so
suggestions.
you're suggesting knock those out as a whole committee?
Yeah, these 3, and then going forward, and let's start peeling that onion.
Doing it incrementally.
Correct.
And that way, some of the things that we're concerned about being liable for somebody to say, oh, it's in the plan, so it must be a use, well, it's gone.
Yeah, I mean,
I
agree,
think that
because
makes sense.
If you start with the ones that we're potentially most concerned about
Mhm.
being out of whack, you can do
Mhm.
those 3 or those 5.
Right.
So I agree with that. And that makes it more manageable. That's
Yeah,
something like
absolutely, because this could take, you know,
Yeah.
a year.
that. But it's progress over time. It
Yes,
keeps happening.
yes.
And that's an effective thing.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody else? You guys good with that? Okay. All right. Let's
Yeah,
open to
that
the
sounds
public on this one then. All right, can I get a motion to open to the public regarding these 2 ordinances?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Francis? Yes, ma'am.
Who
Pardon me for
seconded?
being
Good.
annoying.
Who seconded?
Second. Well,
Thank you.
I can project, so I'm not gonna walk over there again. Assembly and finishing can be, it's a matter of scale. I think the building that's for sale down the road past, almost to the light, that is right by Sandra Road, that may have been an assembly and finishing operation. If somebody has electrical and that's their business, they might have a storeroom or what you could call a warehouse where they keep the things that are ancillary to their on-site business or their product that could come under that. You know, if you take ordinances out without thinking about, well, in what context is it not an annoyance, you could find yourself in litigation. So it might be worth looking up what that building just down the road was. What they were assembling, and I know that there's a variety of, you know, so somebody's making weather vanes in their backyard or birdhouses, is that assembly and finishing it? I don't know, but be careful.
Could be
when you take
manufacturing as well.
something out as a category, you're better off to maybe limit it in scale and scope and volume than to just execute it yourself was, well, we didn't really mean to do that. Not all warehouses are Costco.
Mm-hmm. Duly noted.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't do birdhouses.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this?
All right,
Go ahead.
jump, well, so for like some of these, so like it says, you know, research, it's too broad, it needs a definition.
Yes.
So does Alexis do that, or Megan does that, or, and then, like, I would assume you would give us something, and then the planning board would determine whether it kind of fit in
So
or not?
I think the preliminary step would be what Megan and I kind of did very, it's like a very high level thing, was just to look at it and make sure first that those uses in that list have a corresponding permitted use and a corresponding
Gotcha.
definition, right? And then, because for example, forget which one, I think car wash, right? It's not defined, but it's in that list, I believe. And neither of them are permitted anywhere, right? So first you have to figure out whether it's even worth defining it, because if it's not anywhere, why are you gonna waste the resources to find something that is not anywhere in the ordinance?
Right.
I think that's the preliminary step, is to just, it's a great place to start, because it's all of like the uses at one point that were in East Amwell in that chart, to go and see what is still even a permitted use, whether there is a definition, and if that definition does need to be one amended or two even created. And it also works in the reverse, right? You have uses that might not have a definition, so that might be the harder thing to do, is reverse engineer, but I think that's the preliminary step, is to just see, just to even figure out where the problems even are.
Gotcha, okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm jumping back, but I agree, if there's easy ones that are, like, they're not permitted use anywhere, I mean, I would just kick it, I'd recommend to kick it to the township
Yes.
committee. I mean, that's, if we have to introduce the ordinance a few times and just keep making changes, it's
Yeah.
easy, like we did with the
Versus-
warehouse.
exactly.
Yeah, versus waiting 8 months and something, the pool comes in or something, so.
Yeah, that's my fear as well.
Yeah.
Knock out that low-hanging fruit. Going back to the anyone else from the public before I close it? Okay, seeing nobody else from the public, can I get a motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second was Emily, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll close to the public on that. Next up is the items for discussion. Has everybody looked at the invoices? And assuming everyone has. Let's see, la. All right, can I get a motion to approve all the invoices that are out there? Yes. Yeah, okay, second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. Invoices are all approved. Oral reports, Mr. Mills isn't here for farmland open space, we'll skip that.
He provided.
Oh, he did, all right. Thank you.
I've seen the maps. It's coming along.
Good.
There was a farmland preservation plan public meeting last week, and Megan discussed the maps and gave a good breakdown of some of the requirements to the committee.
Kristen, do you have a microphone?
Yes.
I know
Yeah.
when I'm at home and trying to listen on YouTube, I can't usually hear you.
Thank you, sorry.
Good. On?
There was a a farmland preservation plan public meeting last week, and Megan discussed the maps and gave a good breakdown of some of the requirements to the committee. She has already started on the written portion of the plan, and estimates it could be ready as early as January or February. There is no other news to report for both FOSBEC or AAC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Environmental Commission, Marnie?
So last month, the EC gave feedback on the dark sky ordinance. We also met the new watershed ambassador, and she offered we talked to her about our problem with invasives in the rain garden, and so she offered to work with Jamal on that.
She came out subsequently, and so we saw Clausen Park, and she's going to work on some signage, which is available to do presentations at schools, and good resource.
Wow, good.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, they've always been really helpful. And then we sort of talked about, there's some town-owned lots in the Sourlands that we were hoping to partner up with Sourlands Conservation to plant some trees, but it doesn't seem like that's gonna work, so we're sort of looking at, are there useful things to do with those properties? And we meet next week?
Monica Vasquez, so these are properties owned by the township?
Yes.
Oh, how large are they?
Oh, there are several of them. The ones that we were looking at were two off Ridge Road that were about 20 acres, and two that are sort of, if you go into the Sourlands Preserve off of Rileyville, you sort of walk back that trail off on the left, and that's also 20 acres. And then there were there are a couple other 10, 20 acre ones.
Were these purchased as preserved land? Is that the purpose, or is it
So
or former contaminated sites that we have to take?
I tried to find that out, and I talked to everyone who I could think of, and I took all the files from Marianne and looked at them, and I can't answer that question. It seems like people, well, there's two competing things. Most of these lands are adjacent to already preserved lands, so it appeared to be purposeful.
Yeah.
But then, in the files we have, it just looked like
Didn't have
people didn't want to pay taxes anymore, so
Yeah.
passed it on.
Well, okay.
Um,
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, Marnie stayed on top of that with the land, trying to figure it out and what it
Yeah.
was there for and stuff, and she's been good with that, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't very successful.
No, but she put in a lot of work, she did.
Thank you, Marnie. Kristen, was Mr. Mills give you anything for the Ag
she
Advisory?
said-
Oh, I'm sorry, never mind. Richard, Historic Preservation Committee? Anything?
Sounds to me like the Historic Preservation Committee has been reorganized and has a new president and is doing their job and doesn't need to be, hopefully will not need to be monitored, and will be giving reports to this committee directly.
Good, that'd be
That's-
wonderful.
And I think that's progress, and and that's as it should be.
Okay, thank you. Township Committee, anything for us?
Yeah, so we did pass, we had the second readings for about 12 stormwater ordinances that we had to do. We powered through that, so that's good. So those are all done, so we won't get fined as a town for not having it done. I've already talked to Jason from DPW a little bit about how to implement that. And as a reminder, we do have a grant for the stormwater from the state. We also got title for the Landis Burial Ground, which is pretty cool. It has the oldest headstone in Hunterdon County, so that's gonna go with Ringo's advisory. We discussed the salt barn, with rescue squad, school, lots of things, so.
Yes,
It's gonna be a big
it's a
meeting in
lot.
December too, for people
Yep.
to come, come pay attention and give their input and stuff, so.
Okay.
Did I miss anything?
Just one update on the stormwater regs. I know Jamal and others had suggested that we reach out to the township engineer to see if there was any
Yeah.
flexibility in stormwater. There's very, very little because they're state mandates. However, given our concern that the way the ordinances were originally drafted, certain things like grass clippings, leaves, garden waste would have been prohibited from placement on private property, which seems extreme given our township being so rural. And plus, we in the packet of stormwater ordinances, there was already another ordinance that prohibited putting those kinds of vegetated waste in the street where they could get into the storm sewer. So the township engineer agreed that we were sufficiently addressing the state's concerns by having it in that don't blow, throw into the street, and therefore we were able to take out the prohibition on those things being placed on someone's property. You know, mulching, you know, composting are, we think, in our town appropriate uses and shouldn't be a problem for stormwater. So we didn't have much latitude, but as I understand it, we got more latitude than I think any other town has. So,
Good.
and I think it's reasonable given who we are and what we're doing and how.
Absolutely, thank you.
I want to make sure this committee knew, because this committee wanted us to look into that.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor. Planning Board Secretary.
Nothing new to report.
All right. Just a reminder to the board and to Township Council that's here, don't forget that there's a stormwater management course that we're supposed to go through. It's like 45 minutes long. There's also a little test at the end of it, believe it or not.
It's like from it's
Yeah,
so
I
outdated
know.
looking. I don't understand. I know.
Cleaned up some storms.
Yeah, I know.
The test is multiple choice, thank God.
Is there a crib sheet?
Yeah. It's like, wait a
Mine
minute.
glitched out before it got to the test, so.
Oh, you gotta do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
There's that, and I just want to wish everyone have a very safe and enjoyable Thanksgiving, and enjoy it. With that being said, I'm going to open to the public. Can I get a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public? Going once, twice? All right, seeing none. Motion to close to the public? All in favor? Yes, ma'am.
Bring up one comment.
Go ahead.
So, I've been in communication with the chairman and vice chair, but there's an application that will likely be on next month or the month after. There is some ambiguity in the ordinance about whether notice is required. The applicant's attorney believes that it's not, and myself and my firm believe that it is. So we're working through that, but I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware in case you heard anything in regards to that, that we do believe that notice is required for the application. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. It's a appeal of a zoning, of a zoning decision.
Right.
So just wanted, and for the record too, it will be a zoning board, right? So.
Oh, we're constituting.
Yeah, so we will constitute as a zoning board, whenever that application is heard.
Right.
So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Full disclosure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The correct notifications going out to the public. Thank you. Correspondence, Park McKay and Ferrero. I think everybody's read those. We don't need to take anything on that, right? Okay. Wow, 8:15. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn the November 20th? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everybody.
Just in time for you.
Right?
Yeah.
What about like leave the leaves?
So did I borrow this?
Yeah, right.
I think that's the chairman.
I was really confused. I was genuinely